we're gonna answer every question, so I apologize if we don't get to whoever raised their hand first, but we'll get to
Okay,
it.
three quick questions. One, you mentioned, you showed the chart, and I talked to, is the bottom line. We're gonna continue having this problem if the bottom line doesn't increase. So how are you gonna take care of that? Then second question is, we know we need to make budget cuts. So, but how can we make budget cuts without hurting people who rely on certain programs? And like, I'm on a pension, and I gotta pay tax on my pension, so what's your idea of, I shouldn't have to pay a tax on a pension, you know? So what's your input on those?
Well, and you and your caucus have supported the Learn Here, Live Here program, which deals with the, how do you keep people in Connecticut, grow Connecticut. Do you wanna talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, and there's been a big movement to try and get younger people in here, and the more we can grow the population, the more we get good paying jobs in here, the better off we're all going to be. And Connecticut, as everybody knows, has got a reputation of being very anti-business. And regrettably, we are not being successful in changing that attitude. Whether it's putting more mandates on businesses, particularly the small businesses, like sick day leave, and this year they're talking about mandating employers going and giving 8 hours off to employees to take time off to go to school activities. There are a lot of things that discourage people from hiring anybody anymore, or the minimum wage. These are the people who create jobs. These are the people who pay income and high salaries to us, and we need to change the attitude whereby people want to come into this state so that we can all get jobs. I mean, in Bristol, we have close to 10% unemployment. People can't even get interviews, okay? And we're trying to be able to build up things. We're doing better in the manufacturing sector, but we got to be able to do a better job in other sectors. So we clearly have to start changing that around. And one of the ways is, if you stay here and you live here, we're going to give you incentives to doing it. But that takes time. But that's something that we recognize we have to do, and we're, we passed legislation to try and make that happen.
So I think, another way to kind of answer that question, I think almost saying the same thing is we need to reverse all of this. We need to start being on the top of all the good lists and on the bottom of all the bad lists, rather than what we have there. So what are some ideas, especially for somebody in fixed income? 2 years ago, I put in a bill that would stop taxation on Social Security income and on pension income, because you've got a fixed income. The other side of that equation is your expenses, though, which we need to deal with. And obviously, there's things on here that go directly towards that, such as some of the highest gas prices in the country. Gas tax, 4th highest. Depending on the month or the year, we've been the 2nd highest in all 50 states to the 3rd highest in all 50 states as far as the overall price of gas. And it's not, you might pass some of the blame on speculation. You might pass some of the blame on the fact that we don't refine enough close to Connecticut. But the reality is we have 2 gas taxes. Not every state does. We've got the 25-cent tax that everybody else pays, but we've got the gross receipts tax, which is a tax on the gasoline as it goes into the ground, which you don't see except in the price of the gasoline as it comes out of the ground. And it's a percentage. So as the price of gas goes up, the tax goes up. Last year, we fought hard to cap it. We were successful in capping it, but only capping it for 1 year. And when it comes back in the summer, it comes back with vengeance. It's going to be higher than it even was. So we put bills in to cap that tax again. So those are some of the things we're doing to make it easier for you to live in Connecticut, spending less, which I think addresses that, and then also making sure you keep more of the income that you have earned over the years.
And I think, as Republicans, 2 years ago when Governor Malloy came in and offered his budget, quite frankly, we were not invited into the room our ideas were not solicited. I think that's why we ended up with a bad budget. But we offered our own budget, and we sat down with the Republicans in the House and Senate, went over every line in the budget, every agency, every department, every line. Instead of saying, here's how much we spent last year, let's work off of that, we started at 0. And one of the things that we've talked about and we've proposed, there are ways where we can spend our money more efficiently and better and get even better results for less. And I'll give you the biggest example so far. Connecticut is one of a few states, remember the pie, the biggest piece of our spending is social service programs. Connecticut is one of the few states that is called a dual delivery state. We deliver social services through state agencies, and we have, as a state, partnering with nonprofit organizations in all of our communities that deliver social services, taking people who are sick or mentally ill or elderly or disabled. It costs a nonprofit agency to care for a person about 50 cents on the dollar of what it costs the state. And I'll give you the best example. Riverview Hospital is a hospital that's owned by the state of Connecticut that cares for children who are severely mentally ill. These are kids who absolutely have to be in care. They need it. It costs us over $1 million per child per year. No other state in New England has a state-owned and run hospital to do this. New Jersey got out of the business and partnered with private nonprofit hospitals. We're not talking about private entities trying to make money. We're talking about nonprofit hospitals. I met with individuals at St. Vincent's Hospital in Bridgeport. They had bought a facility in Westport, and the man who ran the facility was the person who did the transition in New Jersey from a state-run system of caring for kids with mental illness to nonprofit run system. He said it would cost them about $450,000, still an amazing amount of money, to care for one child per year in their system. But if you take a savings of, say, $500,000, and any time there's, say, between 70 and 100 kids in the hospital, you save $30 to $40 million a year, and you haven't cut a single service. You're delivering the same service. You're just delivering it in a different model. Those are the types of things that we have to be doing as a government, and yet we can't do that in the state of Connecticut. And if we got, my last point, if we got out of the business of delivering social services as a state and partnered with nonprofits, first of all, I think our local nonprofits deliver the care just as well and with compassion as anyone can. But if we got out of that and transitioned, you can't do it overnight. But we can save in our state budget somewhere between $350 and $500 million a year. We haven't cut any one service.
That's a no-brainer. Why doesn't it happen?
There's a lot of reasons for it, mostly political constituencies. If you don't have a state-owned hospital, and you have those services provided in a nonprofit hospital, say in Bristol, you don't need the state employees to work at that hospital. You need private employees who are working for the Bristol hospital, for example. The gentleman back there was